Hey there, welcome back to the Racquetball Show podcast. I know I have been on a bit of a hiatus, so maybe some of you thought the show was dead. It is not. It is alive and well. I plan to be sharing a lot more of these podcasts. I just had a period where I was a bit burnt out on it. I wasn't feeling as excited about making these podcasts. I had interviewed a lot of the people that I had wanted to interview, and I just wasn't as excited about it. And I've come back at it. It's 6 months later or something, and I'm reinvigorated and excited to be doing the podcast again and sharing stuff with you guys. So, yeah, without further ado, this episode features Rhonda Rajsich, who is just an awesome, phenomenal athlete in person. And as you'll probably see in this interview, she is just uber intense, and her mindset and the way she views things is honestly, in some ways, I view it as a little bit crazy, but also I can see why it's led to her massive success in racquetball, and it sounds like in basketball too, and maybe she has a future in that. I hope so. One other cool note that I'm excited to share is that I bought a camera recently and had the chance to film this episode. So if you want to check out my channel, The Racquetball Show, on YouTube, you can see the video version of this. One note about that video version is that for part of it, the video actually cut out, so there's a little bit of a chunk in the middle where there's no video. I would have liked to have had video for that, but not too big of a deal. But if you're wondering why it's not there, that's why it's not there. Hope you go check that one out on YouTube, because I think it's cool to have that video element as well. Anyway, enjoy this interview with Rhonda Rajsich.
10, serving 10, must win by 2 points.
It is absolute pandemonium here.
I will be the greatest player to ever play the game.
Anybody who won't dive for it shouldn't be playing racquetball.
Get that ball. Get the ball.
So on this podcast, I wanted to get back into doing a bit of an instructional segment. So this segment is about the grip. And this can be viewed as something that isn't that important. It's something that's taught once or twice when you're first starting, and you don't really get deep into it. And I've been thinking of this again because I'm actually reading this book for a couple of reasons, which is Ben Hogan's book it's an instructional book on how to play golf. And I got into this book for a couple reasons, which, one, I just want to become better at golf. Two, I really like this author and podcaster named Tim Ferriss. He wrote the book called The 4-Hour Workweek, and I was reading his book called The 4-Hour Chef. And he was talking about just great ways of learning things and how to rapidly learn, how to take apart different skills and put them back together and become world class at them. And he talked about Ben Hogan's book and how he used that to learn how to play golf really rapidly, and it boosted his game. And he used it as an example of how to describe skills in a way that's really specific and really helpful to people, such that they can rapidly pick up the thing themselves. And Ben Hogan's book, I've just started reading it, but the first chapter is about the grip. And he says that you have to focus on the right things. You have to focus on things that are the most important into your game. And for him, starting with the grip and getting really, really hyper-specific about the grip and how you should be holding your golf club is really not only super important, but something that even some of the top players in the game aren't necessarily getting right. The grip is something, so in golf and in racquetball, it's the last thing on your body that is touching your instrument. So it's the last piece of the chain or the last piece of the whip in a golf swing and in a racquetball swing. The racket is your point of contact with the ball, but your hand is your point of contact with your racket. And getting the grip right, making sure that you are gripping the thing in a way that's going to be repeatable so that your hand isn't slipping off and it's going in different directions after contact or even before contact on different swings, and making sure that the thing is strong so that it's not deflecting when you hit the ball. If the racket is slightly shifting in your hand after you strike the ball, that's just going to develop. You're going to not be consistent with the way that your shots go. Whereas if you have this strong, repeatable grip and you're holding the racket such that it's flat all the way through your swing, you're going to be really, really consistent, and you're going to develop power from it, because it is that last piece in the chain where if it's sucking away power from your swing due to the fact that your grip is a little bit weak, and that doesn't mean grip the racket as hard as you can, by the way, but if you're losing power from the fact that your grip is weak, that's an area that you should be working on, that you should really be refocusing your effort on. And it's one of these areas Ben Hogan talks about being one of the most important things, and that can set yourself up for success in the rest of the game. So I'd recommend really getting specific on how to do this. There's actually, I think, an article on Cliff Swain's blog that I think does a great job of breaking down the grip and how you should be gripping the racket. And to share my own journey with this, when I started playing, I didn't learn the right grip, and I think I started playing when I was 6, and I remember around age 10 being told I had to hold the racket differently. I didn't switch grips from the forehand to the backhand, and that's an important thing to do. So I had to learn how to switch that grip, and it was kind of a frustrating process, but it pays dividends big time when you do switch it and you're getting things right. Because having faulty mechanics, you can compensate for them by doing a bunch of practice, but at the end of the day, a player who has practiced a ton and has the good mechanics is going to beat a player who's practiced the same amount or even more who doesn't have the right mechanics. So again, grip is super important. I'd recommend checking out that Cliff Swain blog post on how to grip the racket properly. I think that does a really good job. I think he may even overemphasize how much you need to turn your racket on each side in order to have a flat grip. So if you're a little bit turned inward, kind of with the V of your hand being down the frame of the racket, if you move more toward that than Cliff says, I think that's okay. But just learning to grip the racket properly and grip it in a way that's strong, it's going to be really helpful to your game. So I hope that helps. That is today's instructional segment. Check out your grip. Ask somebody who has a great game and who has their grip down if your grip is right, because it's a really important thing to get right. I wanted to take a moment to plug my sponsor, Gearbox Sports. I think Gearbox does an unbelievable job of providing great equipment. I love the equipment that I use. I use nothing but Gearbox. And I know it might sound like, as somebody who's a sponsored athlete, of course I wouldn't plug anybody else. At the same time, there's a reason I chose Gearbox. I think they have great equipment. I love the products that I use. I love their customer service. I like interacting with the people in Gearbox. They're all phenomenal. And I think they're doing amazing things for the sport of racquetball. I think they care more than maybe any other brand. So check out Gearbox if you want. You can go to gearboxsports.com, check out their line of rackets, or you can find them through local people, through distributors, through whatever else, Racquetball Warehouse, wherever you want to find them. Anyway, Gearbox Sports is fantastic, and I hope you check out their rackets if you're in the market for any sort of racquetball gear. I am here with Rhonda Rajsich, who is the most decorated American racquetball athlete of all time. Doesn't really need an introduction, but I thought that was a really cool tagline, and I wanted to bring it up. Rhonda, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so I wanted to start with, how did you get started with racquetball?
So my parents joined a health club when I was 2, and my godfather, Mitch Kasavac, who actually delivered me when I was born, he was getting my dad into racquetball, and my mom was always, very active, and she was doing, aerobics and tennis and whatnot. And, I'm a 2-year-old. They'd stick me in the nursery. Well, I didn't want to be in there with all the kids. I wanted to go play something. Like my parents were, playing something. I wanted to go do that. So I figured out a way to sneak out, and, I'd walk around and figure out which court my dad was on. And when I found him, oh, okay, there's daddy. And then I'd go down to the basketball court if it was open and grab a basketball and kind of just play as much as a 2-year-old could, waiting for my dad to be done. And when he'd come out of the court in between games, I'd run up and steal his racket and get on the court and whack it around for as long as he'd let me. And it was, it was just fun. It was something that I enjoyed doing. Nobody made me do it. Nobody told me I had to do it. Dad was doing it, so I wanted to try it. And I'd hit around and, okay, kid, give the big people the racket back now. Where's your mother? I don't think they ever really realized that I was sneaking out to do that. But it was just fun. And then, when my parents got divorced, racquetball was kind of that thing that my dad dove into kind of as a coping mechanism. And he got real serious about it, and he got serious about getting better. And he started, really paying attention to the pros. He started really paying attention to, the higher level players around him in our area. And he started, really paying attention to, how to get better in playing tournaments. And I remember I was about 6 years old when he took me to, his first nationals. And I was at the YMCA in downtown Houston, and we stayed at the Hyatt, which is still one of my favorite hotels ever, just because of all those experiences that I had there with my dad at nationals. And the older I got, again, that was kind of our thing. We'd get up he didn't make me, I wanted to get up at 5:00 in the morning and go to the club in the morning. And he had his, morning group of guys of racquetball and coffee. And, it was just a way for us to connect and go do that before school. And then I'd go to school, then I'd have basketball practice after school. And then we actually started an Arizona junior team, in my youth. That, then we'd have racquetball practice, later on after school, and then go have dinner and go to bed, go do it all again the next day. So it's been a lifelong journey for me, and I do it because obviously I love it. Nobody forced me into this. It was me begging, hey, can we get up early tomorrow? Can we go play?
Yeah. And just from talking with you a bit, I can just tell how driven of a person you are, and it seems to just come naturally.
Yeah.
But is that how it comes up for you? Is it natural, or does it sometimes take forcing yourself to do things?
No, I think it's very natural for me. And it's just, I struggle sometimes, when people ask me how do you stay motivated? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what not motivated feels like. I don't know what that is. Yeah. So I feel bad that I don't have that pearl of wisdom of, well, when you fall off, this is how you get back on. But it's just very natural. It's intrinsic. And I think that maybe a lot of it just comes with, the examples that I have growing up. And obviously my mother and my father were really shining examples of that for me. I wasn't surrounded with anything else. I wasn't surrounded with anything else but excellence. I wasn't surrounded with anything but, drive and ambition and limitless possibilities.
Yeah. You mentioned your dad when you were talking about how you got started and everything. Describe what that relationship was like and what that meant to you.
I was his world. I'm an only child, and like I said, when my parents got divorced, racquetball was what my father dove into. I think really for himself, but as far as there's nothing he didn't or wouldn't do for me. And I never took advantage of that in any bad way or anything, but just to know that no matter what, I've got somebody on my back. I've always got somebody who would do anything within their power, and whatever they couldn't do, they'd find a way, or they'd find someone who could. My father was a colonel in the Army. He ended up retiring as a lieutenant colonel in the Army after being in for about 38 and a half years, I think. So again, there's that, kind of militaristic standard and excellence and expectation and everything else. So, one of his favorite quotes that he reminded me of constantly was Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. And cliche as it is and kind of goofy as it is, but that was very much how, he kind of raised me, was you can do whatever you want. Just put your mind to it, but get it done. Don't make excuses. And I think that just sort of has rolled over into my, just how I am. I mean, and I have no regrets about it. He was hard on me. Make no mistake. He was, I think, sometimes a little unnecessarily hard on me, but you know, there's two different perspectives on that. And there's the one when you're in it and, you know, you just don't want to make dad mad. And that's the one that was, you know, it was rough in high school. I could have a triple-double, set the state record for steals, and have 40 points in a game, but I had 14 out of 15 free throws. I missed that one free throw, and I'm going to catch hell for it on the way home, you know. So it was hard in that regard. But I also know, too, like, you know, as I grew and as I learned more about my father as a person, not just a father, but I know that was just... That really was just his way of expressing how much he loved me, because he literally just wanted nothing but the best for me. And his way was to help drive me to be my best for me. So, you know, it took growing up. It took growing up on my end and on his end for, I think, both of us to kind of realize that's where that came from. I know that those, you know, that drive and, you know, being hard on me, I know that never came from a malicious place. It came from a place of love, but it was also like, he didn't know how to express that love any other way. That was his way of communicating that. And, you know, even though he's not physically on the planet anymore, he's still very much that exact same driving force, you know, behind me. And, I couldn't be more grateful for the parents that I have.
Yeah, that's amazing. You mentioned he's no longer with us. Your dad passed away recently.
Yeah, he passed away on Halloween of 2016.
Yeah. How has that affected you going forward?
Rough. Really rough. Again, I'm an only child. And so my dad was all I had. My mom was all I have. So, and I'm also all they had in that regard. It was when I got the phone call, I was in denial. He passed away out of town. He was in Baltimore for a conference that he attended every year. And I spoke to him that day in between sessions. You know, he was on lunch with his friends. He called me, and I was having lunch too, and we talked. And I mean, I even know what he ate, and he put me on the phone with a couple of his friends, and everything was just a good, normal day. He seemed happy. He was having a good time. He was glad to be there. That was like his favorite hotel. Like that conference was something that like he really looked forward to every year. And I guess he didn't show up to some of the evening sessions, and his friends were calling and texting him, and he wasn't answering. So they asked hotel security to go check on him, and they found him in his room. And he passed away. And the police department called me at 8-something that night, and I'm like, no, you have the wrong number. Like, no, you have the wrong room. No, that can't be. You know, I was fully in denial. Worst night of my life by far. And it was also hard. It took me 2 weeks to get him home. It took me 2 weeks to get him home, and I had to have him, you know, make certain arrangements with a funeral home out there on the East Coast, and then had to send things out there and get something notarized and send it out saying, you know, I give permission to release his property to his brother, my Uncle Gary, who was, you know, the closest proximity to that area. There was just a lot of not just grief, but red tape. And I'm an only child. And so I was not just the sole beneficiary, but the executor of the will. So everything was literally, figuratively, and legally on my shoulders to kind of deal with everything. So, and I'll be honest, I'll be blunt right now. I know that I haven't really gone through or completed the grieving process, because I mean, there's still things I'm dealing with, you know, like, I mean, I did sell his house about a year ago, but even just, you know, I'm still finding accounts that I didn't know existed. I'm still, you know, dealing with all these little strings that haven't been cut yet, as far as wrapping things up that he had, just sort of, you know, this web that he had of his life of things, like I said, accounts and credit cards, and I haven't sold the truck yet, you know, just stuff like that. And there's still a lot of boxes to go through that are in storage. But I think that's probably a little bit of what I'm dreading. I think I'm slightly dreading when I run out of things that I have to tie up for him. When I run out of that to-do list of busy. I think that's when the grief is going to hit, and it could be in a year, it could be in 5 years, depending on when I get all that stuff done. But when there's nothing else that I have to like focus my attention on to accomplish for him, I think that's when it's going to hit me, and it's going to hit me hard because it's been building up for years.
Yeah, that's got to be incredibly tough to deal with. How has that impacted you on the court and in your athletic life?
It's more of a, the reality that he's actually physically gone hasn't set in yet in a way, because I mean, I'm watching SportsCenter, I see some great news or some highlight, and reflexively, still instinctively, like I reach for my phone and I want to text him. Like, oh my God, did you see that? I got to go to notification last night. Diamondbacks 18, Giants 2. Like, I want to call him and tell him about the butt whooping we just laid on the Giants. You know, like, did you see they scored 18 runs? And I'm like, I'll reach for the phone, and as I start typing, I'm like, oh, never mind. You already know. You saw it before I did. You know, it's just there's those things that like I really miss. I really miss certain things that we had shared like that. And sports was always, you know, the kind of the cornerstone of our relationship, whether it was me playing or watching him play or our family play, or, you know, we would just always go to all the ball games together. We had Suns tickets since before I was born. We had Diamondbacks tickets as soon as we got a major baseball franchise. We had Phoenix Mercury tickets as soon as the WNBA was created. You know, like that was just our thing. Like that was the one. We've had Cardinal tickets since before they were the Cardinals, when they were the Arizona Outlaws. You know, we didn't even have a full-on NFL team yet. But so I mean, that was just kind of our thing. That was our safe space. That was where, you know, we were always going to be able to communicate around competition.
Yeah. So I want to get into your athletic life, and you're obviously an unbelievable racquetball athlete, like I mentioned, the most decorated of all time in America.
I'm a basketball player pretending to be a racquetball player.
I was, yeah. You talked to me about how you're even better at basketball.
Yeah, it's not even close. That's the funny part. Everybody asks me, why did you pick racquetball over basketball? I'm like, stupid. Because I was stupid. No, I'm not stupid. I don't regret anything that I don't regret a single minute of my racquetball career. I do miss basketball, though. I miss basketball in a way that I don't think I was honest with myself about for a really long time. And I will put it out there in public right now. Yes, I still want to play professional basketball, specifically for the Phoenix Mercury, as soon as they figure out that I can shoot really well. So, yeah, I can't imagine not competing.
Yeah.
At anything.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of the level. I mean, I again, we started this by you asking me about how driven I am and motivated, and that's not going to go away, whether it's racquetball or basketball or competitive frisbee. I don't know, you name it. Like I'm not the go through the motions type.
Yeah. So what do you attribute all your athletic success to?
Good genes.
Good genes?
Great genes. Yeah. Okay. So my father was the oldest of 5 boys, and they all played professional something. My father played a couple years of pro baseball, I think, for the Brewers, and semi-pro basketball. And then because his mother had asthma, that's why he went to pharmacy school. He's the oldest. He's the one who, you know, he shouldered all of her expectations of everything. And so he became a pharmacist basically because his mother was sick. They moved from Ohio to Arizona when my dad was a teenager because of her asthma. So that's how they ended up in Phoenix. But yeah, my dad played 2 years of pro baseball and semi-pro basketball, and then went into the workforce. And the next oldest was my Uncle David, who played professional baseball. He was a pitcher for the Yankees, won the World Series with them. And then after he retired, he became a pitching coach. And I think he just recently retired from being a pitching coach. I'm not sure. I think he might still dip his toe in that with a couple teams here and there. But then was Uncle Gary, also pro baseball. Hell of a hitter, left-handed. Actually, they were both left-handed. And Uncle Gary then became a scout. He's currently the lead scout for the Baltimore Orioles, and he was actually in the Red Sox organization when they won the World Series. and then was my Uncle Tim. Actually, I'm sorry. I totally did the wrong order. It was my dad, then Uncle Tim, then David, then Gary, then Robbie. So Uncle Tim, I skipped over him, but Uncle Tim also played for the Brewers, I think, for a couple of years, and then he did the family thing and opened up his own taxidermy shop in Flagstaff, Arizona, and he did phenomenally well at that as well. And then my Uncle Robbie, the baby brother, who he actually passed away during Pan Am's in Chile last year. During opening ceremonies is when I got the call. And that sucked. That was rough as well. But Uncle Robbie, he still holds the record for the longest punt at University of Miami. Then I actually forgot this until we went to his service. He actually kicked for the Chargers as well. And then he became a professional golfer. And I'm going to throw this in only because I never let him forget this, so I'm not going to let him forget it now. But that literally 2 days after he got his PGA card and became officially a professional golfer, he had to pick me up from school, and I made him take me to Golf and Stuff, our little mini golf, place near the house, and I beat him by 2 strokes. It was either 52 to 54 or 50 to 52, but it was I know I beat him by 2 strokes right after he became a pro, and I never let him. I was like 8 years old. I never let him forget it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I actually had an alternate theory on why you had all the success you've had. Obviously, you know better than I do about your own self. But my theory was that it's your mindset. You're just the way you are wired mentally.
I think that has to be a component of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it has to be.
Just, speaking with you in the last couple of days, you're an intense person.
Well, thank you. I'm going to take that as a compliment.
I've heard you say some things that strike me. When you talked about basketball, you say, I don't miss.
No.
You talked about you're a big fan of just sharks, the animal, not the hockey team, and you want to go swimming with a great white shark without a cage.
Only if it's 20 feet or above. I don't want to swim with minnows.
Yeah. Okay. You just strike me as someone who's just wired for competitiveness and greatness, and that was what I thought of when it came to why you've been so successful.
And I find that is a very humbling and deeply grateful for that kind of a compliment.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the only guess I can even hazard is, I mean, I've been through some shit. And I mean, starting at a very, very young age. I almost died very early in life. I had a fever of 108. I had to have kind of a life-saving surgery that had a 1 in a bazillion chance of A, working, and then B, that I would survive it in the first place. And I think I was in kindergarten when that happened. So I don't know. I guess I've had a certain appreciation for life since I can remember. And with that said, I don't want to waste an ounce of it. I want to do as much as I can. I want to fulfill as much of my dreams as I can, and I want to be of service to as many as I can while I'm here.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
So let's talk a little bit more on the racquetball side, a little bit more tactical. So there's some components of why you've been so successful are great genetics, an incredible mindset. What on the court, just tactical racquetball things do you do that help your game?
Practice a lot. I mean, everybody wants a shortcut. Everybody wants a magic pill. Coming from someone who I view myself as a player, but I also do quite a bit of coaching with Jim Winterton. And I can tell you, we can give you all the tips and analysis that we can, but until you actually go out there and spend the thousands of hours it takes to apply it, it doesn't matter. We don't have that magic pill to give you. It comes down to the application and the repetitive practice to get for the skills and the strategies and the those experiences to become automatic, and that can only come by doing it over and over and over again. And especially when I'm trying to help someone learn something new, it's really not learning the new stuff that's hard. It's it's shedding the previous patterns that's the most difficult part. It's not learning the new habits, it's breaking the old ones. And with that, again, if you think about it that way, it's like how many hours of your life have you done it this way? So how many hours of your life do you think it's going to take you to do it more effectively, more efficiently, in order to be, more consistent with doing it correctly? And then it's kind of like, and then it can seem daunting, like, I've been doing it this way for 20 years. Well, it's probably not going to take you another 20, but the hardest part is going to be not doing what you've been doing for 20 years. Might take you a full year. Might take you 6 months. Might be something simple that you can apply right away, and it opens your mind blown, and you're, oh, that's all I got to fix? Oh, okay, that works now. I'm hitting it flat. It just depends on exactly what's going on with your game. But, yeah, it literally is just having the dedication to yourself and the investment to yourself to go out there and apply the hours it takes to get it done.
Are there any big changes you've made in your game, maybe even late in your career, where you realized I need to do this thing to become more effective that had a big impact?
Yeah, and I struggle. Again, I'm so competitive that one of the things I tend to do probably doesn't serve me all that well is that I will create challenges that don't exist just so I have something else to overcome. I'll create an obstacle just to prove to myself that I can conquer it. And I don't always need to do that. I mean, I've lost plenty of matches where, yes, my opponent was playing well and my opponent may have won, but I made it harder on myself in ways that I didn't need to. In fact, Winterton said to me years ago, and this has stuck with me as a way to remind myself to try to not to do it. He goes, I'm never worried about you when you're down 7-0. I worry about you when you're up 7-0. And I didn't get that. I'm like, why? I'm still trying to win. It's not like I intentionally get sloppy or anything. And he's like, no, but when you're down, you have a certain, he said, you have the ability to take over a match anytime you want to. I've seen you do it. But when you're up and you don't have that, I think he calls it a feeling of desperation of like, okay, you have to get this next rally or whatever. It's not like the killer instinct is gone. It's just like the mountain's not high enough. I don't climb it as well. And that was pretty eye-opening to me because I didn't realize I was doing that. But when I can look back on my life and my history and how I do anything, I can totally see where I create challenges just so I can have something to do, so I can have some way to compete with myself. Never mind the opponent that's trying to kick my butt. I'll set up something to compete with myself too. So now it's 2-on-1 and I'm one of the ones against me. And I don't know why I do that other than this hunger for competitive drive. Doesn't always serve me. Sometimes it has. Sometimes it hasn't.
Yeah. What are some memorable comebacks that you've had from when you are down something like 0-7, like Winterton said? Some memorable comebacks where you're way down, but you dig yourself out of that hole.
It's going to sound terrible, but I mean, I've been playing for so long that so many of those things are such a blur right now. I had a good one in Reseda against Frederic. I'm sorry, Fred. It's a funny story. I went into that match feeling great, playing great up to that point. I started the game, I think it was like 6-0 or something. I was serving well, I was hitting well, I was moving well. Everything was clicking on all cylinders, everything. Next thing I know, I lost 11-9. I have no idea what just happened. I thought I was playing good. And I didn't feel like I started playing bad. She just came out of nowhere. She just stepped on the gas and floored it. And next thing I know, I lost 11-9. I was pretty upset about that. Winterton came and had a couple words with me, told me to go, dude, you don't need to change anything. She just played great. Like, you don't need to change anything. She just played on fire. You can't do anything about that. And I think that's something that gets at me too, is that if I have an opponent that catches fire, I feel like I need to catch fire too. And you can't force catching fire. I mean, we all know that. You can't force that to happen. It's either going to happen or it's not. And when I try to force it, I end up trying too hard. I end up making more mistakes than necessary because now I'm trying to do something different that I shouldn't be doing. I need to just play my game. And that's a constant. It's not that I don't know that, but for me, that's a constant struggle of, remembering that in the heat of that moment, because it's, again, my opponent just caught fire. I need to catch fire too. And I get frustrated with myself when I don't. But I know better. But in the heat of the moment, it still, messes with me. But anyway, so Fred took the first game. I think I might have taken the second. She won the third. And in the fourth, she had a pretty big lead. I think it was 10-2 or 3 or something. Couldn't tell you. Don't remember how it happened. Next thing I know, I'm getting ready to serve. Ref calls a score, and I hear the crowd start to cheer a little bit. And I'm like, it kind of broke my focus. I looked out. I'm like, what just happened? Did somebody score? Like, did something major happen on another court? Why are they clapping? And then the ref, because I looked back, he thought maybe I didn't hear him. He repeated the score. He says, 10 serves 10. I'm like, oh, they're clapping because it's 10-10. Oh, my God, it's 10-10. Where'd that come from? And I ended up coming out, pulling that one out, 12-10. And poor Fred, Winterton and I both kind of had a moment to reflect on. Neither one of us had ever seen anyone come out the court and cuss in 3 different languages right out the door. So thank you, Fred, for the comedy part of that too. But yeah, it just that was one of the ones that, again, he kind of made that comment years before of, you can just kind of switch on and take over when you want to. So it's frustrating when you don't. I'm like, yeah, I agree. And just there's a lot of ups and downs, mentally and physically in this game and in a career this long. There's just been so much to learn from. And I think that's, a lot of people ask me, they're like, don't you get bored? You've been playing for how long now? And don't you burn out? And the answer is no, because to me, my drive is that I'm still trying to get better. Like, I honestly don't feel like I've hit my peak yet, because there's still things that I'm learning. There's still things that I'm working on. There's still, new things that I'm like, I've never done that before. Let me try that. And that is what I think still continues to hold my interest in this game, is that I know that I can still do more. And it's not the awards. It's not the accolades. It's not the victories. I'm not trying to chase records. I mean, if I set some along the way, cool. But I know that I just want to, whenever I get done, I want to know that it's because I've done everything I can possibly do developmentally. Like, I know that I can't possibly get any better than wherever I'm at that time. I want to keep moving forward to work on improving my game. And I still have room to do that.
Yeah. How old are you right now?
24. No, I actually turned 40 last October.
Yeah. What do you think the rest of your career will look like? Or what do you hope it goes like?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the game is changing so much right now as it is. I mean, we have more pro stops out of the country than we do in the country. And so, I mean, as far as where's the game going, I'm not sure. But I know that, I just want to be a part of it as long as I can still contribute to it. That's ultimately my goal. And I'll say this. I'll admit this. I do feel like a failure right now in racquetball. Not because I haven't won enough, but because my goal coming into this, when I decided that I wanted to play racquetball full time, was that I wanted to do for racquetball what Tony Hawk did for skateboarding. I wanted to have some small part in bringing racquetball to the masses. I wanted to be a part of, where racquetball gets over that hump, where it's not just a niche sport, where all of us racquetball family who I love know that there's nationals going on right now. I mean, you have the diehards that know everything that's going on in the racquetball world, but I feel like the rest of the world outside of racquetball is totally missing out, because this game is so great. It's so great on so many levels, and I feel like the rest of the world is kind of being deprived, that they're not getting the highlights on SportsCenter. I feel deprived that you're not seeing stuff that happened this weekend on, the top 10 this weekend. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a failure because I have been doing it for so long, and that particular dream has not been achieved yet.
Yeah. What do you feel like needs to be done in order for that to happen?
I'm going to give you kind of an analogy. I always said that if I won the lottery, I was going to hire Dana White I was going to buy racquetball and hire Dana White to run it. Yeah. Just because, and I use that as an analogy. Just I'm not saying that the people who have made progress haven't made progress. They have. I'm not saying that the people in charge haven't applied themselves to, making it better. I think we're all aware of what the obstacles are. I think that everyone's trying really hard to find viable solutions to those. But the fact that a lot of the problems we have today are still the same problems we had when I started playing tells me that we really just need to. And I know, honestly, a lot of it, so much of it comes down to money. You need to buy cameras that are high def. You need to buy connectivity. I mean, we're doing a great job with the streaming. We have the ability to reach more, obviously, with the streaming. But we don't have the funding for a major marketing department. We don't have the funding for, to take the portable court to every single pro stop on both tours. We don't have the leadership who has, the ability to come up with new ways to engage communities at the grassroots level the way that other sports do because of the accessibility. I mean, a lot of racquetball's growth stunting comes from, these cookie cutter clubs like LA Fitness and clubs that have courts, these nationwide chains, but they don't care about racquetball. They don't, it's not important to them. It's a membership perk. But it's not something that the club actually gets behind to develop. They could care less, which is a shame because racquetball courts take up a lot of real estate in a facility. You would think that they would want to get as many butts in those seats as possible, but they just don't care. And you can also tell by the way they maintain the courts. They don't clean the floors. They don't make sure the floorboards are even. They don't, most of them. I'm not saying everyone, but they don't. Repair damage if there is any, unless it, becomes a liability on their end. But it's a shame. But, I think if you look again, just using Dana White as the example, if you look at what he did with MMA, he took it from a very underground cult, you only know if you know type of thing, type of sport, to having their own reality series on FX, having their own brand. He turned that around in 10, 15 years to, I believe they recently sold it for $4.6 billion or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Something ridiculous. And I would say MMA was no different than racquetball is now, if even less known. I mean, you didn't have household names like Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, Conor McGregor. You didn't have, those weren't household names a decade ago. They weren't. And so the fact that it's now even just recently being broadcast on ESPN, not solely on pay-per-view. I mean, they're reaching even more masses now. Now they're reaching the audience that didn't want or couldn't afford to pay the $60 for every fight. And I know there's still some pay-per-view out there, but you're getting more freebies on ESPN Plus now than, I'm just saying, like, look at the audience that they are now reaching. That, and these aren't MMA fighters. I mean, the racquetball audience is made up almost exclusively of racquetball players or former players or people that are somehow involved in the sport, manufacturers or contributors in some way. But if you look at who's paying attention to MMA now, it's Joe the plumber.
Yeah.
I mean, you're reaching every household, accessible to ESPN at this point. And that's exactly the type of marketing and development and outreach that racquetball has yet to tap into, is finding a way to if you don't know about racquetball, you don't care about racquetball, this is why you should. Like, that's the audience we need to be exposed to. Get some excitement about the sport from people who, and the crazy thing is, everybody's got that racquetball story. I can't tell, I guarantee you, every single time I'm on an airplane. So what do you do? Oh, I'm a professional. Oh, racquetball, really? Oh, I love racquetball. I used to play that with my dad. Or, oh, I played on my college team. We had a rec league. Or, oh, my uncle played. I mean, everybody has some connection to racquetball in some way most of the time, but then everybody also inevitably has that, yeah, that was a lot of fun till I got hit.
Yeah.
That's usually everybody's exit. Like, oh, yeah, I got hit one time. I didn't like that. I just quit playing. But it was a lot of fun before. I'm like, well, keep playing. I mean, you don't get hit every time. As you get better, as your competition gets better, you don't get hit every time. It's a lot of fun when you can get out there and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's interesting how people shy away from it in a way because of the fear of getting hit or getting hurt on the court.
Yeah.
It's like people go skiing and
But they'll go do paintball where that actually hurts a lot more. It leaves
You're basically like
leaves a worse
intentionally
bruise.
getting
Yeah.
hurt. It's unreal.
Racquetball, nobody's aiming for you. You know,
Yeah.
paintball, they're specifically aiming for you.
Yeah, and if a beginner hits you, they're not hitting you too hard. So what do you mentioned Dana White. What do you think Dana White would do if he took over racquetball tomorrow?
I don't know. He's kind of a tough guy to pin down what he's going to do.
Yeah, fair.
I don't even, if this gets back to him, I don't ever want to say the wrong thing. I do think that he would probably dismantle it in a lot of ways, organizationally, and possibly even, I mean, hopefully come in and find a way to have better exposure. And if that means finding investors to, have several glass courts around the country, around the world that could be moved around and built for better exposure in better locations. Like they used to have that pro stop out here where they put the glass court on the 16th Street Mall. That was awesome. They had the glass court in Mexico in several town squares and parks and everything. I mean, and we're, now you're literally getting people off the streets. The 3-wall ball event in Las Vegas where they put up those outdoor courts right on the strip, right across the street from the Strat. I mean, you got people walking up and down the street with their, giant margarita shooters, but they're stopping by because they're like, hey, what's going on? They hear the noise, they see the lights, they see the stands, they want to come in and see what's going on. And that's great. But if you can do that with a pattern of, hey, this event is going to be going on. If you're going to be in the area, you should come check it out. Like, I don't remember if they actually did it or not. I know that there was aspirations of putting the glass court on Navy Pier in Chicago. I mean, that would be a hell of a location. But again, it kind of comes down to the accessibility. It's great to have, those courts and that exposure and the glass, have people come by and check it out. But then not just walk by and stop and check it out for a few points, but make them have something that makes them want to stick around and learn more and possibly get involved. Or even if they don't necessarily get involved at the player level or organization level, but if they want to, make them want to tune in.
Yeah.
Make them want to tune in between tournaments. Make them want to tell their friends, hey, have you seen this yet? It's the kind of thing that it needs to expand like a wildfire, and marketing and exposure wise, our sport just hasn't done that yet. And again, with the accessibility, like how you got to be able to have courts that people can get to. That I've never done that before, but I know where there's courts by me, with where you don't have to have necessarily a gym membership and sign all these liability waivers, and if you're under 16 you can't come in type of like that. All of those things are very limiting. All of those things are very exclusive. It makes it hard to bring new blood into the game when you're cutting off the pathway to do it.
So I want to take a segue into something intense, which in 2008 you were attacked. Could you take us through that experience and how it impacted you?
Yeah. I got jumped from behind by two guys with brass knuckles, and I took about 8 to 10 shots to my face and head. And all I could really do was turn around and square up. And when I did that, my immediate thought was, I have Worlds in 6 weeks. I can't break my hand on your dumb face because and I wouldn't be able to play. So, I tried to defend myself. I mean, I guess all I could really do was kind of put my hands up by my head. But like I said, it took about 8 to 10 shots to my face and my head and turned around, and I was never off my feet and I was never unconscious. And I think that's probably saved my life a little bit. That's probably not what they were expecting. I remember what that sounded like when I took those first few hits, and especially the first one. It just sounded like when you snap celery in half, and it felt like the whole right side of my face had just gone over to the other side of my nose. Like it felt like I had a hole in my face. And like I said, I turned around, squared up, and didn't swing because I had the presence of mind not to if I didn't have to. There was some words exchanged, and actually he did all the talking. I really didn't say anything. I was just kind of trying to gather like what the hell's going on. Ultimately, they ran away. I don't think they were, like I said, expecting me to be on my feet or coherent. And when I turned around and didn't run and whatever, they just kind of took off. So I ended up walking home. I had my right hand over my right eye because I was afraid my eyeball was going to fall out, which 2 years later I actually found out it could have, which was kind of a shocking revelation. But I didn't know how bad it was. I started walking home, and then I heard something, and I turned around, and it was one of them running back at me with his fist up, like this, like he was running at me to like Superman punch me. And I had my hand over my eye like this, and so I put my left hand out as he got closer. I'm like, dude, just stop. Just stop. That's exactly what I turned my hand and everything, just like that. And on the one hand, I did that because I kind of wanted to give him that sense of, you're in control, please don't hurt me. That's not how I felt, but I also had this out here I had no depth perception. I had one eye. So if you're going to come at me, I need to be able to feel how close you are. And at that point, even though, I didn't want to have to swing if I didn't have to, at that point, you blitzed me from behind the first time. Chicken shit. Now that we're face to face, if you're going to come at me again, I will defend myself. And also, if I got my left hand out there like this, from here, my right hand, if I need to throw, I can throw from here. And that was my thought. I don't want to swing if I don't have to, because Worlds. That was my main focus. Through getting my face shattered, my whole focus was Worlds. And that was my thought was, I don't care that you're a guy. I don't care that you have a weapon. I don't care that you're bigger than me. I hit for a living, and I know how to generate force. If we're going to do this and I'm going to throw, you might hurt me even more. You might kill me, but I will hurt you on the way down, because I'm not just going to stand here and let you blitz me again like before. So, and none of that was said. That was all just kind of in my mind of, I'm going to stand my ground this time. Like you're not going to get the drop on me twice. And he said a few things. I don't know if I can say it on the air, but edit as you see fit. But exactly what he said was, fuck you, bitch. I'll kill you right here. You think I give a shit? I just got out of prison, bitch. I don't care. I'll go back. I don't give a shit. I'll fucking kill you right now. And at that point, I dropped both hands to my sides, balled up my fist, and I said, okay, then kill me. Go ahead. I'm right here. Kill me. And at that point, he just kind of stood there, almost like he was in shock. And then he kind of gave this weird little giggle, like, and he turned and ran off. And I was so, like, is that the end of it? Like, what? Now what? Like, really? That was all? Not saying that I was inviting more. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting it that night to end that way. So again, I turned around, started walking home like this. And I didn't know how bad it was. My first thought was, this is going to be sore in the morning. This is really going to be sore in the morning. So I was going to go just take some Tylenol or whatever. And actually, I remember I actually had a prescription for Vicodin at the time, because I had a really bad concussion earlier that week that I went to the hospital for, because by 3 days after the concussion, I was still throwing up. So they gave me something for the throwing up and Vicodin for the pain. Well, I don't like taking medication, which is even more ironic because my dad was a pharmacist, but I don't like taking anything. I don't have to. But I do remember thinking, I'm glad the Vicodin's there. I might need that in the morning because this is going to hurt in the morning. I walked in and my girlfriend at the time started screaming, dropped her glass of wine, and freaked out and called 911. And next thing I know, I'm in the hospital and in the emergency room, and they do some scans. And I remember the doctor coming in. At one point, and she was so matter of fact, like she was choosing toppings on a pizza. She walks in and she goes, okay, looks like we found some facial fractures and we're going to need a surgery, and someone will be in shortly to help schedule that for you. Okay. I'm like, wait, come again? What'd you say? Your face is shattered. Okay. Can you expand on that? Like, just like walking through, I'm not kidding. She like walked through my emergency room curtain for no longer than 30 seconds tops. And I'm like, okay. And at that time, I would say the absolute worst experience of that whole ordeal for me, something that I can never unhear, was my mother's shriek at the other end of the phone when they called her to tell her. They were on the phone down the hallway, and I heard her scream. And I can't unhear that, and that haunts me still. That was the most heartbreaking thing for me. And at that moment, like, I knew that I would never be a victim. I I knew that I couldn't be because there was too many people that cared about me, and I couldn't be a victim because I didn't want that to hurt them. And so for me, when I got the phone and I was talking to my mom, she was just hysterical, and understandably so. I mean, I couldn't imagine what that would feel like from her end. So from my end, I tried to, calm her down, and I was like, Mom, they didn't rape me, they didn't rob me, they didn't kill me. At the end of the day, I just took some shots to the face. I'm fine. And that sentence right there is literally how I view that experience, even to this day. Like, yeah, it sucks. Yeah, there's certain things that have never been the same for me since then. But so what? Like, it could have been way worse. And I'm grateful, and I'm lucky, and I'm blessed, and I learned so much through that experience that I wouldn't change it if I had the chance to. I'm grateful for it. But I think the thing that hurt me more than the physical pain was knowing that the people closest to me that genuinely cared were going through so much pain because of, how they saw me in that situation. And that was, it just hurt. It hurt my heart. When you care about somebody, you don't want to see them in pain, knowing that they're feeling that pain because they care about me. That's why I could never be a victim.
Yeah. And you told me before, if you could go back and redo it, you wouldn't do anything differently.
Mm-mm.
Why is that?
Because I have so much to be grateful for because of that experience. The biggest lesson that I learned out of that was that nothing happens to you, it happens for you. And okay, so I get blasted with brass knuckles and go to the hospital, and my face is shattered. Didn't cry. My eyeball almost fell out. Didn't cry. Had to have facial reconstructive surgery, a surgery that was supposed to take 4 to 5 hours, and it took over 12 because once they got in there, they didn't realize how bad it was. That's why it took an extra 6 hours, because they didn't know it was that bad. And obviously, the longer I was in there, the more anxiety the people waiting for me to come out, felt. But didn't cry. Was told, all these things are going to be different. All these things are now going to change in my life, and didn't cry. In excruciating pain. I mean, to this day, my nerves are shredded. I beep at the airport sometimes. I mean, I have daily reminders of this ordeal, and to me, it is what it is, and I'm still grateful for it. All of that. Didn't cry. I got the first basket of flowers on the doorstep. I bawled like a little baby. That was what I was not prepared for. I was not prepared for the outpouring of support. I was not prepared for the cards, the text messages, the emails, the phone calls, the voicemails, the flowers, the gifts, the donations. That blew me away. That even now I'm getting kind of choked up, because I just never imagined that there could be that level of support. And it really that brought me to my knees more than anything from the actual attack or surgery. That impacted me far more than anything else.
Why do you think that is?
I guess I'm not that special, I guess, to me. Like I don't know how to pinpoint that. I couldn't imagine having that kind of effect on that many people, that they would care to take time out of their day to look for a card, to intentionally send flowers, to intentionally care about the updates of, I'm out of the hospital, or, I went back in, or I'm doing better today, or, I don't know how or why I could impact that many people for them to care that much about me. And it was just so extremely humbling and touching, and just floored me, the reach that incident had when it went around. I mean, it caught fire pretty quick, and it went around the world to people that I've never met. Yeah. And that was very, very, very humbling. It still is. It still just completely blows my mind that I could matter.
Yeah. Was the support from just everyone in your life? Was the racquetball community in particular?
All of the above.
Yeah.
All of the above. I mean, and like I said, the racquetball community in particular rallied like, I mean, we just rallied like champions, really.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone. I mean, when I learned that people were having, fundraising tournaments specifically for me, it almost felt bad. Like I almost felt like, I'm so sorry. Like you didn't have to do that. It's just so. Again, it just brings me to my knees thinking that somebody could actually care, that many people could care at that level to consciously do those things out of kindness for my, just to show support for me and for my health and my recovery. And just, I don't have words to express that feeling.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think sometimes we can take the community for granted a little bit, where it's, just this group of people you play a game with the rubber ball, but you forget how impactful they can be on each other.
Exactly. And that's the thing that makes the racquetball family so special. I mean, like, with all the problems the sport has as far as visibility and marketing and exposure and all that. But if you look at the ones that we do have, the people that are in this sport, there's a reason why this sport is such a powerful bonding mechanism for those of us who are in it. And it doesn't matter at what level, from pro to beginner to, I've never played a tournament, but I'm taking lessons. If you are a racquetball player and you meet another racquetball player, it's like you're instantly accepted because you're a racquetball player, because you get it in that particular sport.
Yeah. What's one thing that maybe the racquetball community wouldn't know about you that you'd like them to know about you?
Oh, God, I always think of these things at the most random times. Then when I'm asked, I draw a blank. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a few people already know this. I really like to sing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What sort of singing?
I prefer heavy metal, but I have some pretty ridiculous range. So I could do anything, but
Yeah.
I enjoy heavy metal. I enjoy the challenges of it. I enjoy the volume of it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, and this interview was amazing. I really love just hearing your stories, as well as just learning more about you and what makes you tick.
Thank you.
So maybe we'll have to do a round 2 sometime, because I really love this discussion.
I'm enjoying myself as well. I'm definitely down anytime you need some content.
All right. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Rhonda.
Cool. Thank you.